If you asked anyone about me back then, they would have said I was the funny one, the girl who could light up a room with a joke or a sarcastic comment. I was the one throwing backyard barbecues, sending ridiculous memes in the group chat, and always laughing, and for a long time. I believed it too. I genuinely thought I was fine. I worked a demanding job as an event planner in a buzzing city just outside of Chicago. Deadlines, last-minute disasters, unpredictable clients, none of it fazed me. At least, that's what I told myself. Stress was just part of life, wasn't it? A badge of honor. I wore mine proudly, hiding the truth underneath layers of punchlines and I'm fine. The truth? I hadn't slept through the night in 3 years. I'd wake up with my heart racing, gasping for air, drenched in sweat. Sometimes there were flashes, loud noises, the smell of burning tires, the shriek of metal twisting against metal. But usually it was just a nameless, choking fear. Still, every morning, I'd pull on a crisp blazer, smear concealer over the dark circles under my eyes, and hit the ground running. Fake it till you make it, my coworker Jenna would say. Laughing as we juggled coffee trays and event folders. I was the queen of faking it. I laughed off the panic attacks that hit me at the grocery store when a cart slammed into a shelf. I laughed off the sudden tears when a client raised his voice. I laughed off the icy sensation in my chest when I heard fireworks on the 4th of July. I was fine. I was normal, except deep down, I knew I wasn't. The truth came crashing in on a random Tuesday morning. I had just parked outside one of our major venues, a sprawling country club lined with manicured hedges and chirping birds. Everything was perfect. Blue skies, warm sun. Nothing should have felt wrong, and yet as I stepped out of the car, my body locked up. My hands started shaking so badly I dropped my keys. The world tilted and I collapsed right there on the asphalt. I don't remember much after that, just fragments, someone shouting my name, the hot taste of bile in my throat, the terror clawing its way up my spine. When I finally came to, Jenna was crouched over me, pale and wide-eyed. "You're having a panic attack, honey," she whispered, brushing my hair back from my face. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to laugh it off like I always did, but no sound came out. That afternoon, I sat in the parking lot with my knees drawn to my chest, feeling like the walls of the world were closing in. That's when Jenna said something that shattered everything. "Have you ever talked to someone about what happened? That accident." Accident. That word hit me harder than the fall. I hadn't thought about it in years, at least not consciously. But suddenly, it was all I could see, the twisted wreckage, the blood, the sirens, the frozen look in my brother's eyes. I thought I had moved on. I thought I was stronger than that, but all this time, I had been carrying the wreckage with me. Laughing over it like it was some stupid inside joke no one else needed to understand. And now, the cracks were too big to ignore. That night after the parking lot incident, I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling, feeling like a fraud in my own life. I couldn't stop shaking. The laughter, the jokes, the busy calendar, they had all been a smokescreen, covering up something I didn't even realize was still there. But now, the memories flooded back. Too fast and too loud to ignore. It happened on a rainy November evening. For years ago. I had just gotten a promotion and convinced my younger brother, Chris, to come celebrate with me. We grabbed burgers at our favorite diner, and I teased him about his terrible taste in music the whole drive home. We were both laughing when the truck hit us. I still hear the sound sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep, a thunderous crunch of metal against metal, the squeal of brakes, the shatter of glass raining down like confetti. The world turned into a chaotic blur. I remember the airbag exploding against my face. I remember turning to my right and seeing Chris slumped over, blood dripping from his forehead. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I just sat there, paralyzed, until the paramedics pried open the door and pulled us out. Chris survived. Physically, at least. A few stitches, a broken wrist. Nothing life-threatening, but I didn't walk away so clean. I buried the fear, the guilt, the what-ifs so deep that even I almost forgot they existed, until now, sitting in my dim living room, I realized I had been living every day in survival mode. Dodging memories, avoiding quiet moments, using laughter as armor. I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want people's pity. I didn't want to be the girl who almost died. So instead, I became the funny one. It worked, for a while, but trauma doesn't just disappear because you pretend it's not there. It waits, and when you least expect it, it breaks through. Around 2 in the morning, I found myself scrolling through my contacts, not even sure what I was looking for. Maybe someone to talk to, maybe someone who could pull me out of this black hole. And that's when I remembered Jenna's words. Have you ever talked to someone about it? Talk to someone, the idea was terrifying. What would I even say? Hi, I'm the girl who's been pretending to be okay for 4 years and it's not working anymore, but something inside me knew I couldn't keep doing this alone. After about 20 minutes of paralyzing anxiety, I found a local therapist's website, one that specialized in trauma recovery, and booked a consultation. It felt impulsive, desperate, but it also felt like the first real thing I had done for myself in years. I didn't sleep that night. I just laid there, wrapped up in a blanket on the couch, feeling the weight of everything I had been running from pressing down on me. Morning came, cold and gray, and I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. Jenna texted me around noon. Jenna, thinking of you today. Proud of you for taking care of yourself. I stared at the message for a long time, tears blurring the screen. Was I really taking care of myself? Or was this just another illusion I'd laugh off later? I didn't know, but for once I decided to sit with the uncertainty instead of running from it. Maybe this was what healing looked like, not some dramatic, cinematic moment of clarity, but small, trembling steps in the right direction. I had spent years pretending I was unbreakable. Now I was finally starting to admit I was human. And strangely, that realization didn't make me feel weak. It made me feel free. For the first time in years, I wasn't laughing. I was breathing. Walking into the therapist's office felt like walking into a courtroom where I was both the defendant and the prosecution. It was a cozy space, plush chairs, soft lighting. A wall lined with books whose titles I couldn't quite make out. It should have been comforting. Instead, I felt exposed, like someone had peeled off my skin and left me raw. The therapist, Dr. Evans, was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and a voice like warm tea. She didn't ask me to spill everything at once. She didn't even press when I sat there for the first 15 minutes, frozen, picking at the hem of my sleeve. Instead, she said, "You've survived a lot. You don't have to prove anything here." Something in me cracked at those words. For so long, my life had been about proving things, that I was strong, that I was fine, that I wasn't broken. Now, here was someone telling me I didn't have to. When I finally spoke, the words tumbled out clumsily. "I don't know what's wrong with me," I said. I can't breathe sometimes. I feel like I'm being crushed and I don't even know why. And I can't sleep. And I'm so tired of pretending I'm okay." Dr. Evans nodded slowly. "It sounds like you might be experiencing symptoms of PTSD." I flinched at the word. I thought PTSD was for soldiers, for people who had been through unimaginable horrors, not for someone like me who had only been in a car accident. I laughed nervously. "That feels dramatic." She smiled gently. "Trauma isn't a competition. Pain is pain. Your brain doesn't care whether it should be traumatic. It only knows what it experienced." I sat with that for a while. I had spent years minimizing what happened. Other people had it worse. Other people had real problems. Mine didn't count, but maybe that was part of the problem. This belief that my pain wasn't valid unless it looked like someone else's. Over the next few weeks, therapy became a lifeline. It wasn't easy. Some sessions left me feeling like I had been turned inside out. I cried more in those early appointments than I had in the last 4 years combined. We talked about the accident. We talked about the guilt I felt for being the one driving, even though the police report said it wasn't my fault. We talked about the way my body still carried the memory of that night, the muscle tension, the hypervigilance, the racing heart, and slowly I started to see it. My life hadn't been built around joy or purpose these past few years. It had been built around avoidance, avoiding silence, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding anything that might crack the fragile mask I wore. One evening after a particularly intense session, I sat in my car and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were tired. Her mouth was set in a grim line. She looked older than her years, worn down by battles no one else could see. And yet there was something else there too. A flicker of determination. A stubborn kind of hope. I realized then that healing wasn't about becoming who I used to be before the accident. That version of me was gone. Healing was about building someone new, someone who wasn't afraid to admit when she was hurting. Someone who didn't have to laugh everything off to be lovable. I wasn't there yet, But for the first time, I believed it was possible. And that belief, shaky as it was, felt like the beginning of everything. Once I admitted to myself that I was living with PTSD, the hardest part wasn't facing the memories. It was facing other people. You don't realize how much of your life is built around pretending until you try to stop. I told myself I didn't have to tell anyone if I didn't want to. That healing was personal, private. And that was true to a point, but every time I saw my friends laughing at a joke I couldn't quite fake anymore, or dodged an invitation because I knew the noise and crowds would send my heart into overdrive, I realized my silence was becoming another kind of mask. It wasn't sustainable. The first person I told was Jenna. We were sitting on her porch one evening, sipping tea, the sky melting into soft pinks and purples. It felt safer somehow outside the artificial glow of restaurants and crowded living rooms. I fiddled with the sleeve of my hoodie, heart hammering in my chest. "Can I tell you something?" I asked, my voice shaking. Jenna nodded, setting down her cup, giving me her full attention. "I think I have PTSD, I said, forcing the words out before I could chicken out. "From the accident. I'm working on it, but it's been hard." For a terrifying second, she just stared at me, and then she got up, walked over, and wrapped me in the tightest hug I think I've ever had. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You don't have to do this alone." I cried into her shoulder, feeling years of loneliness peel away like dead skin. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I realized something. The fear of being judged had kept me silent for so long, but the truth, the people who loved me really loved me. Didn't see me as weak because of my struggles, they saw me as brave. Telling Jenna gave me the courage to be a little more open with others too. Not to everyone. Not all at once, but in small ways. I started turning down invitations when I needed to without feeling like I had to invent an excuse. I let myself leave early from crowded events when the anxiety crept in. I said, "I'm having a hard day." Instead of pretending I was fine. Not everyone understood. Some friends drifted away, uncomfortable with my honesty. That hurt more than I wanted to admit, but it also made room for the people who did understand, who didn't need me to be the clown or the party planner or the strong one all the time. And slowly, very slowly, my life began to feel less like a performance and more like something real. Dr. Evans introduced me to grounding techniques to help with the panic attacks, breathing exercises, tapping my fingers, noticing 5 things I could see, 4 things I could feel, 3 things I could hear, simple things, ordinary things, but when the flashbacks hit, or when my chest tightened for no obvious reason, those simple things became lifelines. It wasn't a straight line. Some days I woke up feeling almost normal, laughing real laughs that didn't feel hollow. Other days, it felt like the world was too sharp, too bright, and I crawled through it just trying to survive, but I kept going, because now I wasn't running from the pain. I was facing it. And with every painful, exhausting step, I was reclaiming something I thought I had lost forever. Myself. It's been a year now since that night in the parking lot, the night I realized laughter couldn't hold me together anymore. A year since I finally stopped pretending. A year since I started living, and life looks different now. Healing hasn't been some neat, linear journey like I once hoped it would be. It's been messy. It's been slow. Sometimes it's been so frustrating that I wanted to give up and slip back into the numbness I knew so well, but I didn't. I still go to therapy. I still have days where the memories ambush me. I still get overwhelmed in crowds sometimes. Heart pounding like it's trying to escape my chest, but now I know what it is. I know it's PTSD, not weakness. I know it's my brain trying to protect me even if it's using broken tools, and most importantly, I know I'm not alone. Jenna has been my anchor, reminding me on my worst days that I am more than the worst things that ever happened to me. Other friends, the ones who stayed, learned too. They stopped expecting me to be the comic relief at every gathering. They accepted me when I was quiet, when I was tired, when I needed to step outside for a breath of air. I even joined a support group. At first, it felt unbearable sitting in a circle of strangers admitting out loud that I was one of them. Someone with a diagnosis, someone with trauma, but over time those strangers became a kind of family, because they got it. They didn't need me to explain why a slammed door could send my whole body into panic. They didn't need me to justify my fear. They simply nodded, and sometimes that silent understanding was more powerful than any words. One evening after group, sitting in my car with the windows rolled down and the spring air brushing against my face, I realized something. I used to think healing meant going back to who I was before the accident, but healing isn't about going back. It's about moving forward. I'm not the same girl who got into that car with Chris on a rainy November night, and that's okay. She was brave in her own way, but so am I. Different doesn't mean broken. Different doesn't mean less. It just means different. These days, when people laugh at my jokes, it's because I want them to, not because I'm trying to hide. When I smile, it reaches my eyes. When I say I'm okay, I mean it. And when I'm not okay, I say that too. If you had told me a year ago that I would be living like this, with openness, with honesty, with vulnerability, I would have laughed in your face, because back then, laughter was all I had, but now I have something else. I have truth. I have connection. I have a life that's real, messy, imperfect, and still beautiful, and I'm not laughing it off anymore. I'm living it. Every raw, unfiltered moment of it.